So we're working on a project and trying to think a little bit outside the box and working on a classic vehicle. And we really want to maintain the integrity of kind of the classic look of the car, yet we want to do a big system in this thing. So I'm exploring different ideas. I had this equalizer around by SoundStream, and there's a lot of different companies that make these. And what we're looking for is something that we can input streaming music to. So we don't really have a place for a head unit. We don't want to cut up the dash, put a single DIN in the classic dash. We toyed with building a custom console, and customer said, I really like the look of the factory console. I don't want to lose that. So putting a traditional, head unit and stuff in there wasn't really an option. So the nice thing about using something like this is it's got inputs, and then it's got adjustable outputs on it, and it's an equalizer. So we weren't going to use this crappy old thing, so we picked up this unit from NVX. It's the XEQ7. And the cool thing about this thing is it's got a volume, it's got a fader, and it's got a subwoofer output. And then it has a 7-band equalizer on it. So it really clicks a lot of boxes of what you really need from your system. So it's got built-in I believe low pass crossover, but your amplifiers and stuff generally are going to have all that already. So this thing really doesn't need crossovers. So we'll be able to fade it front and rear, adjust the subwoofer level. And it's got one set of inputs into it. So, you can run this directly from your phone right into this thing. And then it's got 3 sets, front, rear, and subwoofer out. And everything's controllable. So it really clicks all the boxes on that stuff. And then another thing that we're thinking about doing is hiding this away so it's really not even visible. And what's going to really help a lot is we need some sort of input. And the beauty of this is this has Bluetooth built into it, and it also is a volume knob. Okay, so we should hopefully be able to mount this thing and adjust the volume with just this. So this will be mounted either in the console or somewhere on the dash, and it'll give us full control over volume. You'll still need to control your source unit from your phone, by your phone. So we'll just put some sort of a cell phone mount or something like that. But I'm going to mount this thing up on the bench and kind of play around with it and just sort of see how it's going to, work in the vehicle, and see if it's really something that we want to do. So let's get this thing hooked up and give it a whirl. All right, so we've got the NVX EQ hooked up, and we've got this wireless knob. Well, it's not wireless, excuse me, the Bluetooth control on it. And so the cool thing with this knob is, and it's kind of plays hand in hand with probably one of its downfalls, is the volume on it is actually connected through the Bluetooth, and it actually volumes your source, aka your phone. It'll change the volume on that, and so that's what's controlling the input signal on it. And it also has on here, so it doesn't have a knob, that just rotary knob that keeps turning. You actually just turn it and hold it, and it takes a while for it to change because it's going through the Bluetooth. So the volume isn't very responsive. It's not very quick. And that's not necessarily a horrible thing. If any of you have ever used a wireless bass knob, it's kind of the same thing. But what it does have is you just push this thing, and see, and it'll start and stop the music. And then it also, what you can do with it is start it. and you can see you can actually change your tracks with this thing too. So that's not really a bad thing. So one of the problems I did run into with this is it had a whole bunch of hiss to it. And I don't know if you guys have ever, when you get multiple sources and things, because, you know, literally we have a signal that's coming from a phone into this Bluetooth, okay? And then this thing's outputting a voltage into this thing, okay? And then this thing is coming out and going into the amplifier. We got a train that comes by. So when you've got multiple sources like that, you really need to make sure you sync your volume levels on those things, or you're gonna run into like a hissing noise sound. And so I ended up taking the SoundStream one, hooking it up, and the hiss went away. And I thought, well, you know, maybe this thing's just crap. Well, when I looked at the specs on this NVX, it has 7 volts of output, which would be the input into the amplifier, which is a lot. And a lot of the modern amps like a lot of input voltage, right? But this is an old crappy amp, and it doesn't like a lot of input voltage. So when I turned the gain all the way down, turned it to its lowest position on the amplifier, and then I adjusted the volume accordingly, and then I could use the range on this from nothing to full volume, and then you won't use the volume on this anymore, okay? And then so what my plans are is to just tuck this thing away, and you can use it as a fader, you can use it as a subwoofer volume. Okay, as this thing's lit up, it's hard to see with these lights. So we've got the master volume, okay? So once it's all set up, we're only gonna use the volume on this thing, okay? And then we'll have fader here, and then we'll have our subwoofer up and down, and then we've got 7 bands of equalizer. So I think this is gonna work out really good. I just need to work out with where we're gonna stash that, and I'm gonna show you that in just a second. All right, so our plans are to use and leave the factory stereo as just a dummy in the hole, and it's just gonna fill that spot. But below there is an ashtray. Okay, and so this ashtray opens up, and what I'm gonna do is we're gonna stick this thing in the ashtray, and we'll have to cut out where the cigarette lighter and stuff was, mount this thing in here, so it'll be up inside the dash, stashed away, and so you'll just pull the ashtray open and you'll be able to do whatever. And again, you could just use the master volume on this unit to control the entire system, which I don't think will be too inconvenient. So we just thought we'd try that knob because it's got Bluetooth already in it, and we need Bluetooth anyways as an input. So I'm thinking that there's a good chance that we'll actually mount that knob here on the dash. There's a blanked panel here, so that'll be pretty cool. And here's our custom speed HUD gauges that I did. So we can fire these things up. They are super cool. They light up, look neat. So anyways, that's what we got going so far. And another surprise, we drove this thing, and that footage is here.